Good morning to all of you here in the sanctuary of the First Unitarian Church of Alton, and greetings to all who are watching this service remotely. We welcome each and every one of you to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. I'm Mary Johnson, and I'm serving as the worship associate for today's speaker, Dr. Robert Kokonyesi, who joined our congregation in 2017. He is a professor at Lewis and Clark Community College, teaching anatomy and physiology. He is a ceramic artist with some pieces currently on display at the Jacoby Art Center, as well as on his website, Beachfront Pottery. His native language is Hungarian, and he has translated over 30 sermons from Transylvania Unitarian ministers into English. And the sermons are available on his website, The Unitarian Porch. He also loves trees, and his backyard is full of starter trees he's planted. We're happy to have Robert in our pulpit this morning.
Good morning. We begin our worship with the ringing of the church bells from a Transylvanian Unitarian Church of Nagyajta, Romania. A central ritual in the Unitarian Universalist faith is the lighting of our chalice. It symbolizes that we have entered sacred space and are preparing our hearts for the blessing of a beloved community that happens whenever we gather. If you are watching elsewhere and have a chalice or candle, please light it now. I invite you to join me as I light ours in the sanctuary. Please join me in saying the unison chalice lighting words projected on the screen. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. You heard the ringing of the church bells. That is a typical invitation to worship in Transylvanian Unitarian churches. The first Unitarian church was formed in Transylvania 454 years ago and survived in its original form today. The Unitarian Universalist Association has been initiating and maintaining United States Transylvanian partner church relationships between 1980s and 2021. So here is a Unitarian postcard in our mailbox. Each postcard from that faraway land brings the sound and the spirit of sermons, the thoughts of Christian Unitarians who do form a church, base their beliefs on Christian creed. They visit church buildings to worship the God of the Christian Bible. Today's sermon is about the statue of David Ferenc, the founder of the Transylvanian Unitarian Church. His examination and interpretation of the Bible led him first to become anti-Trinitarian and then Unitarian. His religious arguments won the recognition of Unitarianism as an official religion of Transylvania in 1568. After centuries of severe repression, the Transylvanian Unitarian Church is in the process of rebuilding. The sermon that I translated is posted as number 35 on my website, theunitariantorch.com. Let us listen together. Let us challenge together. Come, let us worship together. Please rise as you are willing and able to sing our first hymn, number 108 from the Gray hymnal, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. My life flows on in endless song, above earth, lamentation, that told far off here, that heals a new creation. Lord, I hear the it's Today we have a story for all ages, and this is a translation of an old Transylvanian folk tale. The title is The Castle of Firtos. When you look at the Castle of Firtos, you can see that it's a very old castle. Fairies built it right after the Almighty God created the world. As soon as the oceans retreated from the dry land, a beautiful fairy princess called Firtos flew down from the clouds right onto the top of this mountain. There she settled with other fairies, and soon after they decided to build a large castle on the mountain top. They started right away and were putting up the walls, working days and nights. Firtos had a wicked-minded sister called Tartud, who always been jealous at everything Firtos did. So when Tartud saw the fairies hard at work building the castle, she told Firtos, I will build a bigger castle by midnight, and I even take the cornerstone of your castle for it. The castle of Firtos was completed before midnight, and the fairies celebrated by setting bonfires on top of the walls and dancing around the fires. But lo and behold, the wicked fairies of Tartud came and quickly dug up the cornerstone, drilled a wide hole in the middle of the big stone, put an iron rod through the stone, and they carried the stone to their castle by grabbing the ends of the rods. And that's what you see in this illustration. But what do you know? Just then, the rooster crowed, marking midnight. The rod broke, and the stone fell into Coron Creek, and the castle of Tartud fell apart as well. If you don't believe me, you will believe your own eyes. So check out the big stone in the Coron Creek. The stone still has the hole in the middle. That's the end of our story, and now we will sing the children to their activities. May you know, love and hope go with you, love and hope go with you. Learn, grow, learn, grow. With every sermon, with every service, we relate it to one of the 7 Unitarian Universalist principles. Today's service is most relevant to our 4th principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. A reflection from a Unitarian Universalist Association website reads, this privilege calls us not to be isolated and self-centered, believing that our single perspective trumps all others, but rather to be humble, to be open to great mysteries of truth and meaning that life offers. And those mysteries may speak to us through our own intuition and experience, but also through tradition, community, conflict, nature, and relationships. David Ferenc, the founder of the Transylvanian Unitarian Church, embodied that 4th principle during his life by searching for the biblical truths about God and Jesus. Unfortunately, his opponents didn't accept the ideals of the 4th principle, and David Ferenc was imprisoned for his views and died in prison.
The reading this morning is about Samuel, a prophet in the Old Testament, because our Bible verse for the sermon, thus far the Lord has helped us, is from the first book of Samuel, chapter 7, verse 12. Samuel lived about 1100 BCE and was a main religious leader at a difficult time in the history of Israel. His life was dedicated to serving God from his birth. He received calls and visions from God to carry out specific tasks. He achieved the return of the people of Israel to the worship of God. At the time of our Bible verse, he is recognized and respected as a man of God, as a prophet of Israel. The title prophet meant that people of Israel understood that God spoke to them through Samuel.
For things on our hearts that we hold in silence, we recognize them by taking a stone or stones from the bowls near the chancel. We allow the stones to bring us into awareness of those things most important in our life. Through thought and meditation, we then place the stones in the cleansing water of this community. If you have joys, sorrows, celebrations, struggles you wish to recognize, you are invited to come forward now in a ritual of joy and sorrow. Our sermon today was written by Reverend Rats Norbert Jolt, the minister of the Downtown Unitarian Church at Kullerswaard. This sermon was written in 2018 on the occasion of the unveiling of a full-size statue of David Ferenc, the founder of the Transylvanian Unitarian Church. The translation is by me. It is usual that every sermon in a Transylvanian Unitarian Church starts with a Bible verse. The Bible verse today is coming from first book of Samuel, chapter 7, verse 12. Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen, and called it its name Ebenezer, saying, "Thus far the Lord has helped us." Dear celebrating brethren, If we could sum up the relationship of the Lord and his chosen people in the Old Testament, it would sound like this. The Lord calls out to his people, and then the people react in some way to the calling. In almost all biblical stories of the Old Testament, that sequence of action recurs. The Lord reaches out with his hand, and the nation of Israel responds. Of course, the Lord reaches out in many different ways. Sometimes he addresses them as a father would talk to his child. Other times, he beckons as a lover would to his sweetheart. Yet another time, he curses at them, admonishes them, or thunders at them. Or he, as a ruler with flaming eyes, threatens them with destruction. Or he creates laws as a wise governor would. I could present a long list of the ways the Lord reaches out and addresses his chosen people. However, the essence of his message remains unchanged. Come and be in my presence, be my people. In response, the people can respond in one of two ways. Either accept the outstretched hand or reject the hand and move away from the Lord. If the people say yes to his message, then their affairs will go well. The people will become more powerful, live in security, achieve prosperity, and be happy. If, on the other hand, the people move away from the Lord, then catastrophe will strike, foreign powers will rule them, they will be struck by blow after blow, and they will be impoverished. Of course, these consequences don't happen because the Lord rewards the obedient and punishes the wicked, but primarily because a life of abundance is the result of walking with God. In contrast, catastrophes, hardships, and possible destruction are the result of moving away from God. Keeping the commandments of God is the task of the entire faith community, making it possible to develop improved virtues such as the feeling of belonging in a community, empathy, caring for the destitute, the lifting of the fallen, and the living of a moral and virtuous life. Moving away from God brings the opposite: selfishness, arrogance, and the oppression of the weak for the purposes of gaining more power. The obvious consequence of all these catastrophes, because only destruction can result when people prey upon each other like wolves. In our Bible verse and the story that follows it, the people are light years removed from the Lord. While they recovered the Ark of Covenant from the Philistines, their fear never went away because the Philistines continued to menace them. Something was broken, something was torn up. The people lost their self-confidence and belief. The idols of Astarte and Dagon that the people worshipped were just the symptoms, much like a pale skin or a fever are symptoms, but not the cause of a disease. The actual disease the people were suffering from was their insecurity in their own future. Their old stories degenerated into kids' fables suitable only to excite the imagination of children. Who in their right mind would believe that they used to be a mighty nation, that the word of Joshua parted the Jordan River while the Ark of Covenant was carried to the other side, or that the walls of Jericho fell down when the trumpet sounded? Who in their right mind would believe these tales? The bitter truth is that the Philistines were near, and they were just waiting for the command to destroy their enemy. The people were far away from the Lord because they had lost confidence in themselves and they had lost their faith. One person, the prophet Samuel, the aging, perpetual idealist who dwelled both in royal palaces as well as in small huts, continued to proclaim, "Trust yourselves we will be powerful. Believe in God and discard the idols. You need to heal, my brethren. He continued such proclamations for 20 years. It had been 20 years since the Philistines conquered Israel, and after all those proclamations, the people finally said, "That's enough. Let's make a final attempt, if for nothing else, for the sake of this old man." So they gathered at Mizpah and listened to the prophet with uncertain feelings. Some believed his words, while others had a dismissive smile on their faces. But the Philistines got word of their preparations and attacked the Israelites. The well-organized, well-fed, paid-to-fight army of mercenaries lined up near Mizpah. The only choice that remained for Israel was to confront them. Otherwise, they would perish. The only choice that remained for the people was to believe. And then the miracle happened. A loud sound was heard coming from the heavens. Perhaps it was the sound of God that frightened the Philistines, or was it perhaps the yell from the throats of thousands of Israelites? Or was it perhaps the roar of the power in their hearts, in their hands holding the sword? No one knows precisely. However, the entire expanse around them started to rumble. The consequence of the miracle was that the well-organized, well-fed, well-armed Philistine army ran hastily in retreat. When the men returned to Mizpah, the unbelieving nation couldn't even celebrate. They didn't know how to win, and now they didn't know how to celebrate their victory. That was the point when Samuel erected a stone and prayed with the sigh of an anguished old man. Thus far, the Lord has helped us. This was not the boasting of a victorious general. It was not a statement from a strong, self-confident nation. This was rather the reflection of a person peering into the past and projecting into a hopeful future. Now you can see that if you believe and if you trust, the Lord helps you. Dear celebrating brethren, how many times have we been the people who believe sometimes but not at other times? How many times have we, as Hungarians in Europe, as Transylvanian Hungarians in Romania, or as Unitarians in the ocean of other denominations, gathered around a prophet and smiled at those kids' fables? Smiled at our bright historic past, at our great patriots, at the idea that our current condition can be improved. How many times have we gathered at the Mizpahs of our history and half-heartedly listened to our own Samuels, reluctantly followed their advice, and did all that because prophets must know better, so we can just follow them? My dear brethren, it is important to analyze our history and our traditions because each and every historical event records a decision and its consequences. If you act this way, then that will be the consequence. Learning from those historical lessons helps us to recognize, to comprehend what we need to do in those situations that recur time and time again. Samuel's action is such a recorded event. If you are true, if you believe, and if you trust, the Lord will help you as He has done on countless occasions before. If you believe, you will remain in existence. If we believe, we will remain in existence. Those same lessons are taught throughout the history of the Unitarian Church. During the course of our 454 years of existence, we have had our share of peril, our share of balancing acts at the edge of a precipice. Peril first visited us about 15 years after the founding of the church, when the prince wanted to erase this strange and heretical denomination from the list of religions in Transylvania. Then they wanted to break our back of our church through the agreement of Daish. Then came the 18th century, in which blow after blow struck us, and the church barely survived. And don't forget about our latest balancing act at the edge of the precipice during the communist dictatorship in the 20th century. Who would have thought, who would have believed that we would have a celebration on this day? My brethren, so many times we have stood at Mitzpah, and with a sigh, we embraced idols because it had been rammed down on our throats that we can't, that we shouldn't. We are small and weak, and that they conspired against us. When we don't have the courage to let go of those idols that destroyed our self-confidence, we allow the well-fed and strong Philistines to achieve victory and to rule over us, to oppress us, and to stomp on us. My brethren, as you see from the examples I listed, the Lord dispatches Samuels for all times. These Samuels stood in front of the people and declared, "Do not be afraid, because the Lord will help us." These Samuels sighed with relief after each struggle, not with noisy celebration, but with the inner peace of prayerful men and with the confidence of victors. Thus far, the Lord has helped us. In the 16th century, the Lord gave us Enyedi György to lead us. In the 18th century, he gave us Saint Abraham Lombard Mihai, who reconstructed our church from the ground up. In the 20th century, Erdő János, like a pillar, guarded the faith, the strength, and the self-confidence of our denomination. On each of those occasions, when the Philistines approached, we had no other choice but to engage them. In those struggles, we have no other option but to believe and to hope that despite the immeasurable power of our opponent, the Lord will be with us. We believed then and remained in existence. We believe now and we will remain in existence. Today, yet again, we stand at Mitzpah. We won the struggle, and a new stone was erected between our church and the school building. This is the statue he's talking about. For myself, the only true prayer I can speak is, thus far the Lord has helped us. We had to wait a long time. This struggle lasted a long time. The thought of erecting a statue of David Ferenc was expressed almost 150 years ago. How many times in those 150 years have a 1,000-strong group of Philistines appeared in front of us? How many times has the erecting of a statue seemed impossible? To the people who lost their self-confidence and their faith, how many times did even the thought of dedicating a full-size statue of David Ferenc in Kolozsvár seemed laughable? Throughout the past 150 years, there were people, the Samuels, who generation after generation answered, "Yes, you can," to the unbelieving people who were working against them by saying, "We cannot, we shouldn't, we're not allowed, it will never happen." Those Samuels may have spoken softly, but they passed on the dream by whispering into the ears of children who, as they grew up into first fruits, have revitalized the church because they did not forget this dream among their many other dreams. So after those long years, we are once again standing at Mitzpah as the people who cannot truly celebrate, who no longer feel the taste of victory. But the Lord has helped us. I wish I could say that after a magnificent achievement, we can now lean back After all, we accomplished it. The Philistines are defeated. Look how mighty is this small Unitarian church. The Hungarians will be strengthened by this, as the Transylvanian Hungarians point to the statue and say, "Here is the proof of our strength." However, my brethren, the struggle against the Philistines did not end at Mizpah, but continued for hundreds of years. Samuel died, Saul died, King David died, but the Philistines still needed to be confronted because they remained a threat. As they were there then, they are here now. However, the events at Mizpah and in Kolozsvár entered into the history books and into common consciousness. And when a new threat emerges and hopelessness, disenchantment takes over the future generation, it will be sufficient for them to point at the statue and say, "Do not forget, brethren, thus far the Lord has helped us." Here we stand, surrounded by the entire world, Unitarians, Transylvanian Hungarians, and by looking at the statue, we understand that it will not solve all our problems. It will not bring salvation. However, it serves as a witness that the intent of true believers, the work of virtuous people, will bear fruit. There might be a long wait time. We may not live to see it. However, the fruit will be brought to bear. May it be that the unveiling of the statue, for which we give thanks to the Lord, helps us with that. Whenever we walk by it and look upon it, we can say with confidence in our hearts, there's no need to be discouraged. Thousands of Philistines might come. They may attack from all sides. We might appear weak, but there now stands the proof that the Lord will always help the people who live according to His will, who are faithful, honest in their intentions, and who are virtuous in their actions. Amen. You are invited to rise in body or spirit and sing our closing hymn, number 87, in the great hymnal, "Nearer, My God, to Thee." As we approach the time of our offering, give what you will. I invite you to give today when Mary will collect our offering, or by either mail or by using the Givelify app. So your doing so will help us meet our financial responsibility to you at the end of the year. This morning's offering will be most sincerely and gratefully received. May it be lovingly given. Please join me in our offertory prayer, which is projected above. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice.
Does anyone in the congregation have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, then I'll share mine. Everyone is invited to stay for our social hour following the service there in our fellowship hall called the Kate Worker Room. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m., the Congregational Caring Team will be holding its first listening circle to give all of us the opportunity to listen and hear each other. The circle is not a time for decision-making or influencing. It's an opportunity to share and listen deeply to each other. The meeting will be here at the church and also available through Zoom. And the Zoom link was sent out in the recent October newsletter, which most of you get through email, and there are some over on the welcome table if you need to check out what the Zoom address is. And we invite all who are interested to come to the listening circle tomorrow night. And if you need a name tag, please fill out the blue name tag request cards found on the visitor table. And if you're visiting today and would like to get on our email list to get more information and weekly updates and monthly updates about our church, please fill out the cream-colored card on the visitor table. Thanks to Peg Flock, our church had a booth at the Edwardsville Unity Fest yesterday. Several church members volunteered to serve at the booth, where we had church pamphlets and lemonade and candies and fortune cookies and colorful bead necklaces and popcorn available for anybody who stopped by. The fest was very well attended, and quite a few people stopped by the booth, and we answered some questions about our congregation and Unitarian Universalism. And several UUs that we haven't seen in quite a while also came by to say hi. And one more, I will explain what's on this chancel table there. In 2008, my husband and I went on a Unitarian Universalist Association partner church trip to Transylvania. And here are three iconic symbols of Unitarian Transylvania displayed on the chancel. The carved wooden poles, called copiapha, are miniature versions of the large carved poles used in cemeteries and to note historical memorial sites. The Székely Gate is an example of the gates used in entrances to many Hungarian homes and Unitarian churches in Transylvania. And the tapestry is a typical Transylvania design found in most of the Unitarian churches.
Please join me as we extinguish our chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We meet again. Our benediction for today is again fashioned after Transylvanian Unitarian thoughts. Our Heavenly Father, we praise your glory. Grant us that the bright light of the Star of Bethlehem will always be shining on our path, and that all your children find their way home to you. Our Sunday service has ended, but our service in the Word just began. Go in peace. Amen. Our postlude will be played by our accompanist, Joel.